Today we have the lovely goddess Brittney King, who has become a friend of mine this year. And I'm so excited to share her story with each of you and to just dive into what that looks like for her and hopefully inspire each of you through her own story to get out there and make changes of your own. So welcome, Brittney.
Thank you so much for having me. Oh, this is such an honor to be here and be a part of the magic that you are creating.
Thank you. So, tell us a little bit about your journey, your story, and kind of where maybe you started seeing that the road that you were traveling maybe wasn't working for you and that you wanted to do something different, but maybe felt like there was like some pushback against that because of what we've been like trained to learn through our parents and things like that.
Absolutely. Gosh, it's like, where do one start? So I was born and um I feel like I was born and I came into this world, curious and open and excited about life and you don't know anything. So everything's new, everything you like to explore, everything you want to touch, everything you want to taste, everything. And then there starts to get like these programs of like, don't climb that tree. You're going to get hurt. And like, don't do this. It's going to be da 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 da. And I remember a really pivotal moment when I was growing up. Like, I just loved dance and sing and perform. Me and my sister would like tape the music videos and try to like learn the choreography with them. We would just have fun. And so my family was hosting a family reunion, and everybody in my family is like a big ham. And so they were like, we're putting on this talent show. And so it was like the 90s, and TLC's Creep was like number one. This is different than Radiohead's Creep, both very important songs
Oh
for
yeah.
different reasons. But TLC's Creep, like in the music video, the girls are wearing like silk pajamas and they have big fans and it's all like sexy. And me and my sisters are like, we're doing a dance to Creep. And so I wore my favorite outfit, which was this hot pink mini skirt and like this crop top, and I had light up sneakers. And so we went out there and we were shaking our hips and like doing little circles, and like I was just so in my pleasure and in my joy. I just remember feeling like the lights and people were excited and clapping. And I just felt so connected to myself and so connected to my pleasure and so lit up. And then the music stopped and people were clapping. And that's how I saw my dad. And he was pissed. And
No.
there was yelling and hitting and punishing and shaming and all of this stuff about how we were wrong and how dare we do this dance and how dare we move like that, and just wrong, wrong, wrong. And I just remember feeling so defeated,
I
and
bet.
also seeing other adults look at like with pity of just like, I mean, yeah, like we liked it, but like you shouldn't do. So it's just so confusing and really traumatic. And I felt like that was one of my first big initiations in it is not okay to be in your pleasure. It's not okay to be in your joy. Your body belongs to other people and you need to perform how other people decide is acceptable for a woman to like be. And that goes from everything from like, you can't sit with your legs open to like, you can't eat that or you can't do this. And so I spent a lot of my life being a version that I thought was appropriate enough for everybody else, and people pleasing and just really living my life for other people. And I was in my 20s and drinking a lot, super depressed, suffering from disordered eating, self-harm things, like just everything, because I was so unhappy and didn't know how to love myself, didn't know who I actually even was, and really, really disconnected from myself. And I had a series of very intense awakenings from the universe that were like, you've got to make a change. And one of the really big ones was my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And it was a rare form of like lung cancer that happens in non-smoking women of color. And it happened really suddenly. And it was like one day she was fine and she had a cough and something, her leg was hurting. And the next day it was like on a deathbed. And
Mm.
um
And how old were you?
I was 30. 30. Yeah, it was right after my 30th birthday. So I was being with her, and her lungs started talking to me. And this was like my first kind of experience that felt supernatural, metaphysical. I hadn't started like my plant medicine journey, but like I literally just felt like her lungs were talking to me, and they were saying like, you have to live your life. You have to choose joy. Like
Mm.
now is the time. And I in that moment made this declaration of like, okay, like I can't keep living my life the way that I have been. Had recently been navigating healing from a rape. And so it was like between that and my mom's diagnosis of these really big events, that's like something needs to change now.
Mm.
Otherwise you are on this trajectory of not living. And so I reached out
So
to, yeah,
what do you like? And as you speak into it, and I didn't know this coming into this, you had a rape before this diagnosis.
yeah.
So what do you feel like was your mental status before even finding out about her diagnosis, just from, your drinking, your partying ages and all of this? Like, where do you feel like you were at?
Low. Like hell has a basement low. I was performing happiness because I thought that's what people wanted from me and expected from me. I didn't know how to tell anybody that I was suffering with depression. I like started seeing a therapist for like a year, and like halfway, like probably a couple months in, I was still not being real about my problems. I was like performing being okay
Yeah.
at a therapist. Like it was like, I know I need help, but like I didn't know how to take off the mask. And so like therapy was my first like crack of like, there's more here that you're not dealing with. And I felt like I was in like a mental health closet of not knowing how to share with people that like some days it's hard for me to get out of bed or take a shower, or I'll just spend hours crying on the bathroom floor, or
Mm.
so disassociated that the only thing I can watch is reality TV and like not move, or like how certain things like just felt hard, really hard, like washing my face or brushing my teeth. And like then I would swing from like those to like hyper functional and like, well, I need to perform and I need to do all these things. So I'm running a million miles a day. I'm showing up for everybody, but not myself. I'm binge eating. And like, it was just, and like then drinking and not eating and getting into fights with people and all these things. And all of these expressions really were symptoms and cries for help that I was just not aware of. And so when the rape happened, it was a really low moment for this place, because in the experience, I had, when your intuition is just like, something's just not right. And I
Mm.
had that something's just not right moment before I had at the club where I met this person. But I was just like, nope, shutting that down. Like, this is not
Mm.
true. You're like, you're being ridiculous. You're trying to get over these ex-boyfriends. Like, this is the thing to do. And then for the situation to escalate from consensual to non-consensual in such a violent way, it was so illuminating of, I'm not listening to myself. Me not listening to myself has put me in a situation where my life is literally and physically on the line. And I'm in a space where I had felt, when it started happening, I literally popped out of my body. And when I was outside of my body, all of a sudden I noticed I felt water on my face. And I was like, why is my face wet? And I was like, oh, you're crying. And then it was like me really tuning into my body that actually brought me back into my body and was able to allow me to navigate out of that situation, still having my life. And
Mm-hmm.
it was, and that's when the light came on of like, oh, my body is not something that I need to be at war with. My body literally saved my life, and I need to be present to get her messages. I need to actually listen when she speaks. And so having that awakening coupled with what my mom was going through, it was just this huge opening of maybe life doesn't have to be this way. Perhaps your life could be different. And my mom was just such an amazing person. She was the first Black woman superintendent of all the LA Unified Schools. Like she was like a big deal. Like Kamala Harris sent a team to her funeral. Like she was one of those people who, like, she did everything right. She had a PhD. She showed up in this way that was, I'm dotting on the I's and crossing all the T's. And being on that perfectionist path, I was like, and this is where her path led her. And I don't
Mm,
know all of the journeys and ins and outs of all of the shades of her story. And the message I got to me was like, you need to stop living as a shell of like performing what it means to be good enough to everyone else's standards at your own detriment. Like, what is it? What is the true cost? The true
yeah.
cost was my mental health. The true cost was the toll it was taking on my body. The true cost was I wasn't living in my light. I wasn't living in my dharma. I was alone and unhappy and angry and, and disassociated. Like, that's what the real cost was. And I was just like, I'm not willing to pay that price anymore.
Yeah.
It's too high. It's too much.
And I think most people don't even know like what dissociation is, right?
Mm-hmm.
They it's become such a normal piece of their daily life
Mm-hmm.
that they aren't in their body. They aren't even feeling, and that intuition that you're talking about, like it doesn't even show up until it's do or die because they've pushed it down so fucking far
Mm-hmm.
that it doesn't have a voice anymore. And I always tell people, like, it's in there. The dial's just down so low that like you can't hear its volume. You have to be able to turn it back up. But like we have to diminish the other voices of our perfectionism and this idea of what we are supposed to be. We have to turn those voices down in order to hear that intuition within us. And, that day that you were clearly violated, like your intuition was speaking to you, but because we had created this comfortable norm, right, to do anything different, our body sees as uncomfortable because it's part of the unknown. Why would we go do something that like we haven't listened to for most of our lives?
Mm-hmm.
And then here we are put in this situation. And I always say, like, to me, like the divine in the universe is like always tapping on our shoulder. We're just usually not listening,
Mm-hmm.
because the other voices are so strong. And so, you know, and obviously, like, it sounded like your mother was an amazing woman and, you know, did like push past, I'm sure, so many things in your culture and life to be this woman that she created for herself, but
Mm-hmm.
also I think denying a lot of our personal things to have this idea of what we should be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like early on for you with your father and maybe even more of your family or the rest of people in your life needed you to be a certain way that you didn't really want to be, but you didn't know any other way because we wanted to please our family, and how
Absolutely.
much that shows up.
Yes. And it's so insidious because it starts off like probably like, oh, your parents are like, I'm trying to either keep you safe or like teach you about how the world works in a certain way. And the messages are really, can just be really dampening to the soul and to the spirit. And my father, is a minister. So I'm a pastor's kid. So there was this level of presentation that was like, that I felt very much of like my feelings and how what's going on for me does not matter as much as the charade of being this perfect family for like other people. And it was just fucking bullshit. Like, you know, and it made me so mad because I'm like, if we're supposed to be in this church and you're teaching all these things, then like, why do we have to be fake? Like, why do we have to pretend? Why do I have to act in these ways that just don't feel true to me?
Yeah.
And yeah, and just being in those messages for so many different ways, or like in school, it's like, oh, okay, this is what it means to be this, and this is what it means to be that. And so it's a lot of indoctrination for a lot of years. And so it can be really scary to turn down those dials because you're like, well, I've survived this far with all these stories and I'm alive. So I didn't know what it was like to tune into my joy. For me, actually, I didn't know what it was like to set boundaries. I didn't know what it was like to really take the time to explore what actually would nourish and feel good to me. And so all of these things, like, it were true leaps of faith of, I've decided that I don't want to live these other ways and I don't want to live under these prescriptions because it's just not true. And what is possible when I lean into the unknown?
Yeah.
And I thank the goddess every day that, you know, the universe, my guides, everybody was tapping on my shoulders, that I led the path that I led and that I chose to start living differently, because my life now is just, I know who I am and I'm curious about who I am every day, and I live in a space of joy and pleasure and resonance and alignment, and everything in my life is truly magical and amazing, and I get to see it and experience it and I feel it, and I'm present in my body, and like, that just wasn't my reality before. Like, I didn't even taste food before. Food, so good.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I know that, you know, your calling, being a pleasure priestess, really invites all of that pleasure into your life. So
Mhm.
what do you feel like really started for you in this kind of tap on the shoulder, this awakening process of like, I can't continue living the way I've been living? Like, what did you really start? Like, if someone's listening to this and
Mhm.
feels like they're resonating with your story,
Yeah.
and they're needing like a next step, but don't even know what the fuck that looks like where
Mhm.
did you start first?
Yeah. I did something very brave. I asked for help. I asked for help. I would say that is step number one. Ask
Mm,
for help, because we don't know what we don't know. And of course, you can do everything by yourself. You can. But you don't have to. And knowing that I didn't have to walk this path by myself, I literally sought out a pleasure mentor. And like, that wasn't like my conscious thought of like, you know what? I need a pleasure mentor because I have not been living in my pleasure. It was just, I need help. Traditional therapy is not working for me. Like, I'm grateful for where it got me to, for some really actionable steps, but like, it's not, I'm tapped out with that. I need something different. I need something radical. It was just like, let's fucking get weird. I'm calling in that kind of help. And so I had the third triangle, part of the triangle for that spiritual awakening was I had just gotten my dream job at BuzzFeed. And so I was a video producer there. And at the time I was an intern. And so as an intern, you get an opportunity to make a video. And so and everyone's like, you gotta make these trendy things. But like, the only thing on my mind was sexual assault. So I was just like, I know it's not trendy, but this is what I want to do. And I found, like, you get paired up with a mentor, and I told her, and I was just like, this is what I want to make a video about. And she was like, got you. And she literally took me, she was like, first we're going to make this video that I'm going to make. And I'm like, great. And she took me to her other job, which was a pole dancing studio. And I set up all these cameras and all this stuff. And she's like, cool. So you're actually not going to film this. You're going to take class. And she became my first mentor in my journey of self-exploration and connecting to my pleasure and connecting to like a somatic way of healing. And so
wow.
it was all like in this room where it was dark and there were no mirrors and low lighting. I just sobbed for the whole 2-hour class, sobbed about everything because it was just so permission giving and foreign, and everything about it felt right, but everything about it felt like I don't know if I can do this. Like, touch my own self, like, and like these are things are like, we're gonna put our hands on our heart, you're gonna breathe into your body. Like, it was just so foreign. They were things I had never done, and I just sobbed. And at the end, a lot of the teachers, they came together and did like almost like a demonstration dance of like, this is what happens when you continue on this path. And I saw women taking up space and letting themselves be big and standing in their truth and in their power and moving in ways that were just otherworldly, and everyone was beautiful and unique in their own movement, and it was so glorious. It literally felt like, oh,
It's
moment.
intoxicating.
It was intoxicating, and I was just like, I need to be a part of this. Like, I took on it was my fourth job because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to afford it. Like, I don't know. So I like was like, I'm going to work here. Like, it was my fourth job because that's how committed I was like, I saw the path of healing that was possible for me there. And I found a coach, a life coach through this community. It turned on the lights and allowed me to connect to myself. And so my advice to anyone who is seeking support on this path of like, I feel you and I feel your story, but like, where do I start? Literally ask the universe for help. Like, spirit, source, Beyonce, whoever it is that you pray to, like, show me a sign, show me a path, lead me to who can support me in this way. Because the mentorship that I found there, like, I was able to make quantum leaps in my personal development and in knowing myself. And like the things that I discovered about myself, it was where I discovered my own connection to nature, and that like my truth spirituality is being a witch. And these were things that I had just super stuffed down. And like now I'm very aware, like as a child, that was always my truth, but like I really tamped it down with the Christianity. And like I did know I was queer. Like it was so many facets of my personality and of my truth and of my soul that I had completely turned the dial off to. And being in a space where I had mentorship and community and support to really feel safe enough to explore what's my truth, what lights me up, what turns me on, what makes me happy, like truly happy, and have a space for all of the colors of my feelings to be held. Anger, sadness, grief, like the way that these women held space for me as my mom was in her death portal, like it was prolific and expansive, and I just felt the love of the universe. And so my offering is to ask for help. Ask for help.
Also too, like, I also just want to say that, like, being at BuzzFeed and getting to make that video and you deciding I'm going to make it on sexual assault, where like you could have easily picked any other fucking topic, right? That like maybe seemed relevant to you at the time, and like pushed all of what you had experienced down, right?
Yeah.
And like continued down that pathway. And I'm sure that there are people that probably have done that, right? Have experienced something like that, some trauma that like they don't know how to speak about, or they don't know how to tell anyone. And for you to be like, hey, I want to make a video about sexual assault, and then happen to be the mentor who's helping you be this like pole goddess, right? And like take you down that road. Like if you wouldn't have spoke up, that might have never been your trajectory, right? Like that's another parallel timeline that could have been offered to you should you have not like felt that intuition that we were speaking into, that I'm going to fucking say about this.
Yes. It's wild how the universe works, because for so many reasons. One, that pole studio that she took me to, it was around the corner from where my house was at the time, my apartment. I had been flirting with going to this pole studio for 2 years, but a friend and I, literally every time they had an intro class that was on Saturdays in the middle of the day, and we always went to bottomless brunch. So we would always miss this dance class. Like, it was like the help was like the universe was like, we are making sure you're getting to that studio. So like that was one of the things that was just like, whoa, whoa, whoa from the universe. And also with BuzzFeed, it was that all the lines in my path had led me to like, what's the cost of not saying my truth? Because it was like, as an intern, I was not a full-time employee. Like, I was an intern, and like these were auditions to get a job. And so it was just like, I knew it was like, if I make this video that they have already kind of told me is not trendy, I'm probably not going to get that job there. And I was
Yeah.
like, am I going to make it anyway? And one of the things about BuzzFeed is they are an internet company who does not take down content. So anything that gets posted by them stays up forever. And so for me, I was like, I have the opportunity to make something that's going to live on a platform forever. And like, for me, what is more important? And I was like, if one woman sees this and feels not alone, one person sees this and feels not alone, like, it's worth it because they won't take it down. So I made the video. I didn't get the job hired full time. I ended up continuing to work there as a freelancer, but like not as a full employee. But it was like one of those things of like, so many times we can think it's safer for me to do XYZ. And what I had been experiencing was, it's not safer. It's like, safer for who? Like, not my soul, not me. Like, I needed to listen to my intuition and like thank the goddess that I did for the millions and millions and millions of reasons that are supporting who I am being here, having this conversation with you today, is from those decisions.
Hell
I'm going
yes.
to make this video. I'm going to tell these people I'm struggling. I'm going to speak up and advocate for myself. Like, who I am today is from those decisions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, and obviously, all of our journeys, and even mine as well, like the 12-year hell that I experienced with my own personal anxiety struggle, like I wouldn't take that away now because of who I've become, right? And I'm sure in a similar way, like you feel that too. Like, obviously, we don't want things like sexual assault and our mothers to have cancer and things like this
Mm-hmm.
to affect our lives, but it does give us perspective, and it does give us this righteousness to decide who we are in our lives and how we want to progress forward. So, being that, I know you said you were around 30 when your mom got sick. And so that's a lot of time that you were struggling and suffering and your depression and all of these things. Like, if you could go back and be of support to that woman, to that girl, like, what would you want to give her?
It's just like the biggest hug, the biggest hug. Letting her know, like, it's gonna be okay. It's going to work out. Like, the light is here. And this darkness is an illusion. And every day I feel so grateful that some version of me was showing my past self love, because in some of the darkest moments, I really did not want to be alive, and really could have easily made that choice to just no longer be here. And I'm so grateful that I chose to live, and that I chose that my life could be different, and I got resourced to create my different life and my different experience. And so for anyone who's out there struggling, feeling like, it's so dark where I am, I don't even know. I am just breathing light and a big hug to you in this moment, to let you know that you are not alone, and that things can get better, and they do get better. And yeah.
And do you feel like a lot of depression, to me, is this feeling of, hopelessness, and that
Mhm.
nobody can understand what we're going through,
Mhm.
or, and that, as you're saying, like, there's a part of you, like this past self of you, like was there with you the whole time, right? And urging you to keep going, and to not give up. And there are so many days, I'm sure that like even just getting through the day was unbearable, right? And to just get through the day is like trusting that there is something on your side that's getting you just even through each moment
Mm.
and through each hour and each day. Because I think that depression can feel so lonely and feel like no one is advocating for you, no one is on your side. But to be able to flip that idea that there is something that's there supporting you, right? Whether it's God or a higher power or source or goddess or you name it.
Yeah.
What do you feel like you had anything like that to kind of lean on? I mean, I know you said your father was a minister, but was did that help you at all, or were you completely failed by that at the time?
That's a good question. It feels complex. I definitely felt at that point in my life angry with God. And like the whole God thing was bullshit. And so I really felt alone in it. And I don't even know if I can truly say where the strength and like resource came from to like keep going, except for like some part of me, some guide, some little small voice was like, we choose to hope and that this can be different. And as I continued learning more about the world and really personal development, a teacher came onto my path, and his name is Maston Kip. And he was talking about how mental illness is not necessarily illness, it's clues. It's clues. And that our minds are brilliant at protecting ourselves. And so like he was talking about like multiple personality disorder, and he was like, for someone who grew up in a chaotic household where there was a lot going on and they needed to be in a lot of different ways to support and stay safe, like that, your mind being able to fracture itself into different personalities in order to survive is brilliant.
Mm,
You in the regular world, like at a corporate office, like it doesn't it's not brilliant in that situation, so now it's considered disease. So he's like, so if
right.
we start to look at what is this telling me, and so something that he said that super resonated with me was like, what if depression is your barometer for when you're not in alignment with your soul, and like the pain of that disalignment, like that is the, and it like it just resonated for me in such a truth place of like, my depression at that time really was this gift of like, you're not living in your truth, and we're letting you know because it's so upsetting to do any of these. It's like, it's hard to get up and go and do this shit that you don't want to do because you don't fucking want to do it. Can I curse on
Right.
you?
Yes. Fuck yes.
Yes. You don't want to do it. Like, you don't want to do these things. You don't want to perform this thing. Like, and so like when I started getting curious from this way of like, okay, but so how is this for me? And something that my grandma always used to say is like, the sun is as bright as the night is dark. Like, the depths of my depression are real, and also the heights of my joy also like they're the same coin. And the ways that I've been able to traverse through the shadow are the ways I've also been able to traverse through the light. And
Yeah.
so joy to me feels so sacred, and I know how vulnerable joy can be, and I also hold such reverence around it because I know the darkness, because I know the shadow, because I know what it's been like to be in the absence of that, and being in that absence of that and knowing that so intimately, so much, like has allowed me to also hold the space for that much nuance, that much texture, that much color with
Right.
joy. And so it's this both, like you're saying, like no one wants to be like, yes, like my I'm grateful for my path. Were there parts that were dark and like I would not want to go through again? 1000%. Some of the things I lived through, I wouldn't want for any my worst enemies to live through.
Right.
And yet I'm grateful for every single step on my path that has led me to here to be the person who I am, because I don't know that I would have this reverence for pleasure or joy, or know the importance of what it is to follow your bliss, and why that is so important. Why, to me, that is more important to listen to your intuition than what fucking anybody else has to say who's not me,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and I think that's the biggest point of, as you're talking about depression not being in alignment with your soul, with your highest self, your truth, right? And that being the off kilter of that. But that being ultimately what's being modeled in our fucking world, right? And, I'm sure for you and for me as well, like I didn't have anyone in my life that was preaching this goddess essence, like I say now, like to me, what I teach women is like what you were speaking about, right? When you watch these teachers perform that pole routine, right? Like to me, like it's so intoxicating. You're so in awe that like when we don't have that in our life as a representation, how do we know to be that? How do we know to listen to this voice that's coming in us to be anything other than what we're doing? We're being taught to be fake, to push it down, to act like everything's perfect, to just keep pushing on, even though our body is saying, fuck you, like, and so I think it's amazing that through this darkness that you've created this goddess essence for yourself and getting to be this model that we get to give back to women. And, I have two little girls who I'm like, sometimes I worry if it's maybe a little overboard, but like they're walking around like their shit don't stink because they feel really fucking good in themselves, And when somebody tears them down, they're like, no, I know who I am. Right. But we just don't have people like that modeling that in our lives. And so if someone doesn't have that model in their life, what would you ask them to listen to?
Mm, gosh. Oh, that's so good. I feel like I would, again, ask him to ask spirit to show me the sign and show me the way. Like, you and I are both women holding the space for the goddess and goddess codes. And so it's one of those things of like, I know it can seem like we're not out here, but we're here. Like, you and I found each other. I've met other women who are living in this truth, and follow us, connect with us, and allow yourself to find and be in these spaces. Even if you're like, I'm not sure exactly what that is. That seems quote unquote weird. I don't know. But like, or even just starting something with yourself of like, hey, I'm going to invite friends over and we're going to just have a feeling circle, and just talk about our feelings, where nobody's going to solve anything. No one's going to give advice. We're just going to sit and share about our feelings. And like that, like starting to tap into different vibrations and expressions. And so, yeah, that would be kind of like my first place to start, and find other spaces where there's community around these kinds of practices, because we are out here. When I was growing up, I wanted to be an actress, and now reflecting back, what I wanted is what I have now. I saw women who were able to be autonomous and express their sexuality and sensuality and have this freedom and permission, and they were safe doing so. And that is what I wanted. And that was the only place that I saw it, was women on television. So I was like, well, I got to be an actor because I want this thing. And now I have the vocabulary and the feelings inside myself to know what I was actually wanting. Was that freedom to literally be myself and take up space in the ways that felt good to me and be safe while doing so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and too, I think a lot of it too is for a lot of women is healing that sister wound too,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of being able to feel in a circle with women and being able to express yourself and not feeling judged or criticized or all of these things. Because I know for me personally, like that was a huge part of my healing, was to believe that I can even express something to someone else and still be loved for it, and not be judged.
Yes, yes, the sister wound can be so deep. And I always remember back when like we were all little, we would just play with each other and laugh with each other and be having fun. And there was so much joy and pleasure just in hanging out with your friends, before like the socialization of like, well, we need to judge this, or like there's in groups and out groups and like all these different ways that honestly I feel like the patriarchy and other insidious forces like pit us against each other. But when we tune in, like I'm like always encouraging my clients of like, how do we tune into love? Like, what does love have to say? What is the highest expression of love? And how do you attract and call in other people who are wanting to be a part of that vibration? Because a lot of us just want love. We just want to be loved and share our love with others. And so finding spaces where you are able to do that and be held in that space, it repatterns everything. And I feel like one of the gifts that I got, like, our parents, they're complex characters. My dad is a narcissistic asshole who did a lot of really horrible things. But one thing he really did right was he advocated for me to go to an all girls school. And so from 6th grade to 12th grade, I went to a private all girls school that was really founded in sisterhood. Like we had a class called
Wow.
life skills that was literally a class about listening to each other. That was the class. You sat in a circle and
That's
listened.
amazing.
Like it was life changing. We would have class in the park. Like it was such a game changer. And so for me, part of the deep medicine that I was truly blessed with from a very young age was the power of sisterhood and the power of
Mm.
female friendships, and how it was a deep pool of nourishment that we all get to have access to, and how life-giving that energy is with us connecting to the feminine, us connecting to our sisters. Like it is a force like nothing I've ever seen. Like to me, it's like the energy of Mother Nature. It is a force that is unlike anything of this world. And it deeply saddens me how many women have been hurt by other women. And so that there's this really deep wound of like, I can't trust her. I don't get to have access to this. I don't get to have access
Mm.
to friends and to this nourishment, to this community and this collective. And I'm here to be a stand that like that does not have to be anyone's story. We can hold the space to clear those past wounds and create something new, because the power of sisterhood and the power of the collective of women together is, to me, the life force that is changing this world into a better world, into a world that's more kind and compassionate and holding space for each other and nuance and beauty, and just it's everything to me.
I agree. I agree.
Mhm.
It definitely changes, the perspective of love and being loved, even in that, and when you speak into like, what is love, the highest form of love, like within you, right? I mean, like one of the biggest books I ever read was Marianne Williamson, A Return to Love.
Yeah,
And
great one.
it just showed me that like, you know, what what I had learned that love wasn't actually love, and to constantly like recenter, realign, rebalance yourself and go back to that loving space and like think and act and respond from there versus, the hurt child within us, right? That's what creates sisterhood. That's what creates the goddess. I mean, to me, like I feel confident in myself now because I know who I am, not versus what people tell me I should be or I'm supposed to be. And to me, like that's what breeds confidence, is this ultimate, like, I fucking love myself. And I also fucking love you and you and you and you at the same time, right? Because this is this part of the whole. We're not separate.
Yeah, we're not separate. There only is one of us here, and when we remember that and tune into that, um, everything gets to be different. And something that has truly supported me with that is my work with master plants and plant medicine. That it gives me that really visceral physical reminder in my psyche and like repatterns in my brain of like remembering that we're all one, remembering that we're all part of the whole, and like showing up like that of like, how am I showing myself love? If everything is a reflection of myself, like how am I loving myself in every moment? How can I return to love even if there's been hurt and pain?
Mm, I love that.
Yeah.
So, being the pleasure priestess that you are, Brittany,
Yeah.
what is something that you give yourself every day that is non-negotiable in that
Mm.
way?
Oh, something I give myself every day: permission to say no. Permission to say no to things that don't bring me joy. And so that is something that to me is the gift that keeps on giving, because in my no is also my yes. When I'm saying no to the things that I don't want to do, I'm also saying yes to what I really want. And so that's something that I practice every day of like, where are my yeses and where are my nos? And really honoring that of like, hey, if someone comes, they're like, hey, do you want to do this thing? And it's like, do I? Actually don't think I do want to go. So it's going to be a no. Or what is something that really lights me up, and saying yes to those things. And so I feel like permission to say no, and worshiping my body. I love
Mm,
worshiping my body. Like, I feel like honoring this temple for so many years, I was at such a war with my body and just deeply punishing her for all sorts of bullshit that just fucking wasn't true. And so every day I bring a lot of reverence to caring for my body and caring for this avatar. And so like I'll like adorn myself with like oils and scents and massage and touch and fabrics that feel good to me and things that feel good on my body, and just, yeah, honoring myself as the goddess and queen that I am. And like it feels so, I mean, like for those who are watching, like I'm in front of a fire, there's sheepskins underneath me, I have coziness, there's plants and incense, like I'm a sensory lady. And I really love to give that to myself and worship myself in the ways that feel nourishing, because when my cup is full and I can give from the overflow, oh, it's just, it's such a different kind of giving, as opposed when you're depleted and feeling in the shoulds and have to. But like when I'm feeling resourced and loved and honored and worshiped, like giving from that space to my family, to my friends, to my clients, it just feels so good.
I love that. And the part about honoring your no, I think is so important. I think that goes back to your voice, right? And I even struggle with that sometimes because I tend to be a people pleaser because I just don't want to, I don't ever want to be the one that's actually hurting the person, right? But sometimes if that's actually hurting myself, it's not serving me either.
Yeah.
And so being able to just be like, you know what? No, this just is not in alignment for me, and it's crossing like that boundary, right, that I've created for myself that I know keeps me in alignment. So I love that. And obviously worshiping your body, I love adorning myself and feeling good, right? I mean, and like I'll look at certain women who maybe like in a certain situation, like, or maybe a little bit more dressed up than like what other people are, and I'm just like, hell yes.
Mhm.
Like you get you because that makes you feel good, right? Where
Yes.
other people would probably be like, what is she doing? And why is she wearing that? But like, who gives a fuck?
Who
She
gives a
feels
fuck?
good.
Yes. Yes. I love, like, it's, we sometimes can just get so in our head about like what other people think and da da da. And honestly, with so much love, nobody cares, you know? No one can, like, maybe it's a passing thought in their mind, but like what's most important is how you feel about yourself. So like I will wear the goddessy dresses to the things where everybody else is wearing pants, because that's what makes me feel good and in my body. And like I don't care, you know? Like what everybody, and then I feel like it gives other people permission to wear the
Mhm.
things that feel good to them. And like when we're all in the place where we're feeling good, like the vibes around the world are different. Like, you know, when you go into a space where everyone has like, I feel like this is why people love like dress up parties or Burning Man. It's like everyone is in their sacred
Oh, yeah.
expression and people are feeling themselves, and the level of yourself that you bring when you're really feeling connected, and like this just gets to be accessories of like your soul's desire and what feels good. It is such a different vibration than I'm wearing this corporate suit that was issued by Amazon and I don't feel comfortable in it and I just don't even know. Like, you know, like it's just the way you show up is different. It's just different.
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%.
Mhm.
Mm. Okay, so if you had a loudspeaker going to the entire world right now,
Mhm.
what would you want to say?
Mm. Pleasure is your birthright. Pleasure is your birthright. It is not something you need to earn. It is not something you need to be good enough to have. Pleasure is your birthright. And I would encourage every single human on this planet, how do I orient myself to pleasure? What would make this moment even more pleasurable? Is it slowing down? Is it taking in the sense? Like, pleasure is your birthright, and you get to allow yourself to explore what that is for you. And pleasure is we can have pleasure in every moment. I know sometimes pleasure gets relegated only to like the world of the bedroom and like sex. And am part of the mission of like pleasure is everywhere. Pleasure can be the sun on your skin on a beautiful day, or laughing with your friends so hard that like your belly hurts, or laying in front of a fire cuddling with your dogs, like eating the best piece of pie. Like, there's so much pleasure to be had when we allow ourselves to really sink in and have it. And like,
Mm,
please don't just say, oh, have it. Take up the fucking space and really let it in. It changes you. It
yeah,
changes you when you allow that vibration of pleasure into your life.
100%. Mm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Brittany, for coming on. If anyone has just really enjoyed this conversation, would like to get in touch with you, how would you recommend they do that?
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for having me and allowing me to share my story. And this has just truly been an honor. I'm so happy to be here. So if people would love to connect with me, you can go to my website, goddessbrittneyking.com, and it's Brittney. And I give a free 1 hour pleasure activation. So if this is something you've been inspired by this conversation, you'd like to experience what a pleasure activation might be, let's get you in for a free session. And I am also on IG at Goddess Brittney King. I hang out there some places. And yeah, those are ways to connect with me.
Amazing. Well, thank you for coming and joining me. It's been an honor, and I just love being in the space with you. So, till next time, sending you
Yes.
and everyone else love.
Thank you.